Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. It's William Safir, your host for the University Online Learning course. We are like to welcome all of you to the class. Uh, Looking forward to a very exciting topic again, as as always, but particular this second part on the BASMALA, a phrase that we use very often, and for some of us, we use it in just about everything that we do or attempt to do. We say Bismillah or Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. But our international instructor, Benjamin Bilal, will take us into the insight that the source creator is guiding him with and through, so that we can better understand what we say and what we do, so that we can really be able to benefit, get results from our actions and from our words. So Alhamdulillah, the praise belongs to the source creator alone. And we welcome, again, each one of you, and would certainly strongly advise and admonish you to get pen, pencil, paper in hand to take good notes. Again, this is a class. This is not an entertainment session, feel-good session, but this is in fact class, which means that we're here, all of us, including myself and including the instructor. We're here to learn. You know, even the instructor, the teacher, the presenter is in a learning process as he or she presents. So we move and in a spirit of thankfulness, gratitude, and know that the source creator is gifting us with guidance, with information, oftentimes new information with a newness, being presented like it was never presented before. And although, the sun came up this morning, just like it came up yesterday and all the days before, again, it's a new day. And along with this new day and this progressive universe and this progressive creation, we expect to have new information and presented in a way that till it respects the intelligence of the public, of each one of us. And certainly we've been advanced through the mercy of the creator, the source creator. We have been advanced in information, in knowledge. And as such, the presentation, I'm sure, will measure up to the advance in our exposure to the clues and the signs in Allah's creation. With that, I see our national instructor is ready and willing.
Yes, sir.
So I'll turn over the talking stick to
All right. Thank you very much, my brother, William Safir, as always, doing a wonderful job. Let me just switch the camera mode here. And as always, we begin with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which happens to be the further subject for today. We began this topic last week on what William mentioned to you as the Basmala, as it's called. It's also called the Tasmiyah. So any of those terms, if you ever hear them, they're actually referring to the phrase Bismi Allah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, but particularly the first part of it, the Bismillah or the Bismillah, some people pronounce it. And it's been interpreted, as you know, in different ways into the English language. The oldest rendering of that phrase into English, I believe, gave us "in the name of God." And we mentioned that last week, "in the name of God." And that happens to be a phrase that was already in the lexicon of other religious people, such as the Catholics and other others of the Christian faith, they would begin their services in the name of God. And then they talk about Jesus and the Holy Ghost, or maybe Mary and those other characters that are in that particular framework. Uh, Muslims, when they began to translate the Quran into English, and that didn't happen right away. First of all, there was no English language to translate it into when the Quran was actually revealed. If there was an English language, then it wasn't something that was popular on the peninsula of Arabia. And what happened with early Muslims, in case you didn't know, is that they were very, very hesitant to translate the Quran into any other language because they saw the language of Arabia, of Arabic, as being the primo language of God. In the same way that the Jewish community, the so-called Jewish community, sees the Hebrew language as being the primo language of the Creator, Yahweh. And this has been the situation for most so-called religious groups around the world and in history, that when they receive a favor, when they receive this kind of blessing or this kind of mercy from the source creator, they tend to become sort of selfish with it and begin to claim it as their own, not understanding that whatever the creator has given to anyone in humanity belongs to everyone in humanity. Sometimes the creator will send prophets and messengers and so forth for local situations, okay, and it's tailor-made as information to deal with your particular problem. In the Bible, I think it says that Jesus was sent only to the children of Israel. And then later it describes him as a prophet for all people. And we know it's very clear in the Quran that Muhammad is a messenger for all people, and that he was sent to the El Alamin, which means all of the communities of people. So we're not confused about the message of the Quran and who it was intended to pinpoint. The only confusion, again, comes in when people become selfish with the message that was meant for everyone, and they begin to seclude it for themselves and actually benefit from it for themselves, to the exclusion very often of the rest of the world. So this is an issue that humans have to tackle now. We have to become divested of our selfishness. We have to become divested of our self-centeredness and understand that the properties that the human being has been created upon, are properties that are shared with human beings, no matter where you find them. You know, my wife and I were just looking at a documentary on YouTube that was dealing with racism in parts of Africa, on the part of the Chinese, who are slowly but surely taking over the continent of Africa. I don't know how many of you are aware of this growing phenomenon, where economic opportunities for people from China are being taken advantage of by the Chinese in various parts of the poorest parts of the continent of Africa. And these Chinese, not all of them, but too many of them, are seeing the so-called Africans or the so-called Black people of Africa as being a lesser creation than themselves, very much like the European used to see us en masse in history. Some of them still do. Some Europeans still see so-called Black folks as being an inferior stock. They don't voice it because the changing times has not allowed them to be as vocal about that position. But I know that on the most part, the people that I come in contact with who are of European heritage or European extraction, even as European Americans born here on the continent of North America, most of the ones that I meet don't hold that attitude, do not still hold that attitude. And I'm going to be very clear and upfront about that, that the so-called white man is enjoying the fringe benefits of racism without having to necessarily directly participate in racism. But it's very difficult to rally against something that, if you annihilate it, it's going to take away some of your privileges along with its death and destruction. So there are many so-called white people, they know racism is wrong, but they don't come out as strongly against it. I have to applaud the ones who do. But these others don't come out as strongly against it because the tide of favors is still bending in their direction. So we're talking about a slow and systematic growth of human evolution when it comes to the elimination of these poison attitudes on earth amongst humans. And again, the Quran has been specifically designed by Allah to delve deeply into the interstices of human cognition and plant seeds, literally plant seeds in the forms of words, in the forms of sounds, in the form of resonances, vibrations, frequencies, which we're going to talk about a little more today. And it's those frequencies that are actually working on the human psyche, unbeknownst to the people who think they're in charge of the world. Allah's frequencies are working on humanity to alleviate the burden that has been on the human psyche and on the human soul. That's what we mean by the psyche, the soul, including the intellect, including the burdening of the emotional system that Allah has created to help us govern our human lives. So that, my brothers and sisters, is the situation that we're dealing with now. And the only armor that I can think of, or I should say the best armor that I can think of, is the armor of the language of Allah through his Quran. So we have to be aware of Quran's terminology, the terminology that is presented to us by Allah, the source creator, in the Quran. And we have to be able to connect that terminology to that which was existing even prior to humans appearing on Mother Earth. And that is the fitrah, the original patterns upon which everything has been created, and particularly the human creation, once it came into being by the grace of Allah. The human creation was patterned upon that pre-existing fitrah, that pre-existing set of pattern recognition that was being recognized by others in creation that were here before us, whatever creatures they might have been. Some say dinosaurs and birds or whatever, whatever it was, we don't know. We weren't there. But whatever it was, they were existing based on sets of predetermined patterns created by the source creator. So how do birds know to fly south for the winter? Because of these patterns that Allah created. Magnetite in the bird's brain that automatically allows for the bird to know its specific direction for whatever it is it needs as an environment. The bears know to hibernate in the caves during the winter. Creatures move wholesale from one area of the earth to another area of the earth. They're creatures that burrow themselves underground because of certain kinds of weather conditions. So how do these creatures know to do that? It's instinctive, it's inbuilt, it's inborn. And that's what's regulating their lives. But the human being has been created a bit differently. In fact, very, very differently. The human being has been created so that the brain must be regulated by something superior to just mere instinct and emotions. The brain of the human being must be influenced and directed or guided by rational and moral input into the brain. Moral and rational direction has to be fed to the human brain in order for the human brain to reach the level of achievement that has been designed for the human being by that source creator we keep talking about as Allah. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into the name Allah also. Okay. So hang on to your khimars and your kufis and your yarmulkes or whatever you're wearing out there, your priest caps or, whatever, your baseball cap, whatever you happen to be coming to the class with. Whatever you come with is sufficient. It's good. It's acceptable. As we move into our notes, I pray everyone is feeling as good about themselves and about life as I am right now. We all have our moments, but you have to be able to exercise what I call bounce back. You got to be able to bounce back And bouncing back means that you may have experienced a little depression, a little anger, sometimes a little, hesitancy to do something that you knew was good for you and that kind of thing. These are all emotions that all human beings across the planet experience. But you have to also be aware of how to retrieve your lost treasure. Your lost treasure is your sanity. Your lost treasure is your equilibrium. Allah created these things as I'd call them tools to help us regulate our human lives so that the human life can grow and evolve upon the platform of things such as balance, sobriety, clear thinking, future thinking, thinking into the future, advanced thinking. This is what each, and not just the scientist and the doctor and the lawyer, they're not the only ones who have been gifted with this ability to increase in knowledge. We pray for that in the Quran. Oh, Allah, give us an increase in knowledge. Increase us in Zaid. We want the Zaid. We want the increase in the ilm department, the knowledge department. All right. So that's what we're here to discuss with you today. We're not here to just keep giving bad news to you about what's going on in the world. The world is going to be the world. No matter what happens to us, the world will be the world until Allah decides to conclude the world. But we don't even have to be a part of the destruction of the world that you see taking place right now. It's very clear that a society that was generated about 200 or so years ago, called America, eventually named America, has reached its apex, its high point, and is now on the downswing as a society. But what we need to understand is that no matter where the world is in this 1, 2, 3 step progression and regression that we call generation, operation, destruction. Those are the words that give us this, the letters G-O-D. That's the God that the world is following. Generation of powers, experiencing those powers at their optimum level, and then having to experience a decline in those powers. So right now, America is experiencing a decline. In fact, Imam W.D. Muhammad told us that. I was there in the 80s when he mentioned that in New York. He said, we've reached a time where people who considered themselves, I'm paraphrasing now, people who considered themselves to be on top of the world in terms of their American views and in terms of their so-called white image and views and intellect and their ability to navigate the world and tell the rest of the world what to do. Imam Muhammad said that we have to now go to those other nations as salesmen. We have to go with our briefcases in our hands to try to sell them on our new ideas. Whereas before we used to be able to just enforce our ideas on people. There was a popular president who told, actually said it on national television. He said, we can rule the world. He may have used some other word other than rule, but it either meant the same thing as rule or it was something stronger. Yeah, he said, we can rule the world. And, that's the same attitude that they had in ancient civilizations, like England, for instance, where they said that the sun never sets on the British Empire. And not long after that, the British Empire began to wane. See, because all of these societies experienced generation G, operation O, destruction D. And that's the end of that idol God. You see how Allah deals with idols? You thought he's over there smashing, the physical idols are in and around the Kaaba in the head and throwing them out of the Kaaba. You thought that was the destruction of the idols that the Quran is talking about? No. The idols that the Quran is referring to are idols that come in shapes and sizes and that we don't think of as gods, but they have been created as false gods in the life of ourselves as human beings. And those are the gods that the Quran came to absolutely uproot and destroy. And we're living in such a blessed day and time because the idols that are being destroyed in this day and time are being destroyed for good, at least in our reference for good. Good means our generation, maybe the few generations after us, until things begin to happen and people begin to forget and people begin to become negligent again and people begin to become ungrateful. That's the main thing that brings it about. And people forget. They forget the lessons of history. They fabricate the lessons of history. They tell lies about what happened in history to put themselves back in the forefront again. And the next time it'll be a different group of people. It won't be so-called white people. Do you know that this earth that we're on have had its fair share of so-called races that have ruled much of the world in their day and time? 1,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, wasn't Europe ruling 5,000 years ago? They were just getting their feet wet. You had Africans who were ruling. You had people in Asia who were ruling during certain parts of the history of humanity. So because we're living in a day where the preponderance of so-called racism is being perpetrated by so-called white people, we see it as a white problem and we tend to point the finger at the white man and say, you're the devil. Well, yeah, you're the devil for this day and time. But there were some black devils and some brown devils and some red devils, and not the hot sauce. There were actually some red devils out of India that were way before the European devil that we're calling devil. And that's not a slant against what Elijah Muhammad was saying, because he was actually saying exactly what I'm saying, that this devil influence, this devil energy comes in many different packages. Many different packages. If you believe in the myth of Yaqub creating the white race, and they called him an evil black scientist from 6,006 years ago, well, how was he not the devil if he was evil? And how was he evil if he was black? See, Mr. W.D. Farad was a very wise man. I have to applaud him. He was a very wise man to be able to put those punctuations in his lessons so that the studious ones among his students would catch on if they began to dig deeper and deeper into the wisdom that was laying beneath the surface of his language. So I'm going to go deep into some of the wisdom laying beneath the language of the Quran and continue this particular lesson on the BASMALA and what it actually means. Welcome all of you to the University Online Learning course. This is Sunday, June 30th, 2024. Of course, I am your international instructor, Benjamin Bilal, welcoming you to a brand new day. And with that brand new day comes a brand new word that I'm going to introduce you to in the Quran. You've heard it for all of your Muslim life, but I'm telling you that the way it will be explained to you today will show you for sure that this particular word probably, and not even probably, definitely the most popular word in the Quran is actually a brand new word into the world that came with the Quran. And that Quranic word is Allah. You say, this instructor must be a knucklehead. Doesn't he know that the word Allah was in the world even before the revelation of the Quran? That's incorrect. The word Allah was not in the world's lexicons before the revelation of the Quran. The word Allah, listen to me carefully now, you know I'm going somewhere with this. The word Allah was a newly introduced word into the world's lexicon that came with the Quran. There are many words in the Quran that even the Arabs might think were in their lexicon that wasn't in the lexicon. And the reason it wasn't in the lexicon is because the pronunciation of the word was vibrating on another level of frequency that did not represent the word that was presently in their language at the time the Quran was being revealed. One of those words is the word Allah. I'll explain it further in a moment. Another word is the word for what they're calling skies. As-samawat. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. That's the common word, so they think, for the skies. But as-samawat, as it's given in the Quran, has nothing at all to do with the physical sky. So what they call the heavens, nothing to do with it. Why not, instructor? Because the word that we're mistranslating as skies is pronounced differently than the word that is in the Arabic lexicon as skies. The word that is in the Arabic lexicon as skies is pronounced this way. Listen very carefully. It's pronounced as samawat. Say it on your end of the screen. As samawat. You hear that elongation in that last syllable? As-samawat. That's the word for skies. You said, well, that's what's in the Quran. That's what we all recite. I'm a hafiz. That's how we pronounce the word for skies. But it's not how you should pronounce the word for skies. In the Quran, it's pronounced as-samawat. Listen to the difference, you learners, you learners, you learners, you. In the Quran, it's pronounced as-samawat, not as-samawat. You hear the difference because you're listening now with your fitra ears. It's not as-samawat as it is in the Arabic lexicons and dictionaries. It is as-samawat as it is to be found only in the pages of the Quran and the recitation of the Quran. Those of you who know Arabic, Adib Abdullah, many of you, Kareem Hassan, many of you out there, Kareem Abdul Salam Ahmed, right? And many others who I'm not naming right now. Go back and look at that word in the Quran and look for the vowel marks, and you see exactly how it is supposed to be pronounced in the same way that I just explained to you. It's never, ever as-samawat. It is always, always as-samawat. Now you might say, well, basically that's the same thing. No, it's not. Not in Allah's estimation. He could have easily said as-samawat and left your mind to think about what's happening in the skies. Allah said there are 7 of those. As-samawat. And you're thinking, okay, the 7 layers of the atmospheres, the 7 spheres. Atmosphere, troposphere, this sphere, mesosphere, aerosphere you're thinking about, and you're counting them and you're saying, oh, well, science has discovered more than 7, but Allah said there are 7, so somehow we're supposed to crunch those numbers and make all of what is out there become the number 7. And the reason you're bumping your head into a brick wall is because it's not talking about physical skies. It's talking about levels of understanding that come out of the diligent study of Allah's Qur'an. There are 7 levels of graduation in terms of how the Qur'an is able to impact the human brain and the human nervous system on the abstract levels of understanding. How's that for the beginning of a class? Isn't that wonderful? So that same lesson transfers over to the word Allah.
Allahu Akbar.
Yes, indeed. But not Allahu Akbar. That's the other Allah. Allah al-Kabir. That's the one we're looking for.
Naam. Allah al-Kabir.
There you
Naam.
go.
Naam.
There you go. Yeah. The actual attribute. Akbar,
yes.
Al-Akbar is not an attribute of Allah.
No, because
it's actually listen careful. Don't get into a conversation now. Just hit it and quit. Al-Kabir and Al-Akbar. Al-Akbar is actually an attribute of Shaitan. People don't know that. When you look through the Quran for the word Akbar, you're going to find it associated with some very, very terrible things. But Al-Kabir is given as one of Allah's attributes. But thank you for that, Imam Adib Abdullah. You're always on your job. Always ready to ride shotgun with your instructor. Appreciate that. All right, so listen to this, and I don't want to get off track because I only have an hour, a little less than an hour now. The Quranic word Allah, as stated, is a brand new word in the Arabic lexicon. This idea of Allah as the pagan Arabs knew it, it was pronounced by them with a double and triple. In the case of the adhan only, they give it a triple elongation of the alif vowel. Don't worry if you don't know anything about Arabic. You're going to understand this in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned. The word alif is referring to a vowel, one of three vowel pronunciations in the Arabic language. There's alif, there's kesra, and there's dhamma. Alif is the open ah sound, ah, like father, that sound. Like when you say Allah, that open A, that's an alif. So that's one of the ways that the word Allah is being pronounced in the world. It's just that the Arabs were pronouncing it as Allah with a double beat, as they call it, in that last vowel or that second vowel. Allah, see, Allah. And in the case of the adhan, you can go on and on and on and on with how you pronounce the name Allah. Allahu Akbar, Allah. You've heard it 1,000 times. But there is no such elongation, not for 2 beats, not for 3 beats, definitely not. The only vowel sound of the alif vowel is single beat, meaning Allah, that's it. Let me try it again. Say it to yourself at home. Allah, that's it. That's it. And your instructor has researched every place in the Quran. I think a lot for modern technology, where they have these websites that you can just put in a word and it'll show you where that word is everywhere in the Quran. And everywhere I researched, it was the single beat on that second vowel. Allah, that's it. Allah, that's it. Allah. You give it a little breathy sound for the H at the end. Allah, see, that's it. That pronunciation made that word Allah a brand new word to be distinguished from Allah. Separate word. Now, let's talk about how we recognize the one that has been overly elongated. The doubling sound of Allah was represented by what's called a dagger aleph. The aleph is the open ah sound. Dagger aleph is this little sign that you see right here above that W looking thing called the shadda that doubles the sound of the consonant. This dagger aleph right here is the way that the ancient Arabs, before Muhammad and before the Quran was revealed to Muhammad, that's the way the word Allah, which was already in the Arabic lexicon, that's the way it was pronounced prior to Muhammad's birth and prior to the revelation of the Quran. And everywhere you Google this word on the net, in this Arabic script, you're going to find this dagger aleph 95% of the time, unless they're showing it to you directly from a Qur'anic ayah, where Allah is in the ayah, then you won't find that. You're going to find what I'm about to introduce to you now. So listen carefully. Now look at the Allah over here, colored in red. Look at the little shadda W looking sign on top of the lam, the L sounds. And then look at the little mark that's on top of that. Let me make it a little bit bigger so you won't miss it. See, I'm talking about that little stroke right there. That's called fatha vowel. Doesn't that look substantially different than this dagger horizontal line over the same shadda? This Allah is pronounced Allah because this dagger aleph elongates the vowel for 2 beats. Allah. One moment, people are still coming in. It's wonderful. And this regular Aleph is only to be held for one beat and one beat only. Allah, that's it. Cut it out. That's it. Don't no more. Don't go any further. So you can be saying these things to yourself while you're muted on your side of the microphone, so you can get used to hearing it. And it will not escape your brain from this day forward. When you read these words in the Arabic language and anywhere you find it on the net or in a book that's not the Quran, you're going to see them most likely using the dagger aleph that the Arabs used to pronounce the word Allah before the Quran came and gave you this pronunciation of the word Allah. Now, again, some of you might still be saying, doesn't sound like a big deal to me. What's a big deal to Allah is a big deal. Like somebody mispronouncing your name. You don't like that. I don't care how close they come to the real pronunciation. You know what I mean? If somebody says, hey, Miguel, I need you to help me, lift this crate, Miguel. No, my name is not Miguel, sir. It is Miguel. You don't even like when people mispronounce your name. And every pronunciation that Allah gives us, they represent phonemes or sounds that are registering in the human psyche and in the human nervous system, that spinal cord operating up and down your back. See? And those sounds are creating frequencies that connect the brain to meanings, specific meanings that the brain was intended to register. If you're not hearing these sounds correctly, then your brain is not registering the correct connections. So this is Bismi Allah Ar-Rahman. You see the dagger aleph there? That's why you elongate that sound. Ar-Rahman. See, 2 beats. Ar-Rahim. And this is also 2 beats because of the kasra followed by a ya vowel extension. So it's Bismi Allah Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. And that's the correct pronunciation for the basmala, or what's called the tasmiyah. Continuing, the regular aleph that we just got finished describing, it lasts for just 1 beat, and that is how the word Allah is written throughout the Quran, as I mentioned, never, ever, ever with an elongated vowel beat. Now, what is a name? The word for name in the Arabic language is ism. So when you look at the tasmiyah or the basmala or the bismillah, as people like to call it also, what you're looking at is bi-ism Allah. Bi-ism Allah. We contract it to become Bismillah. And they translate that word as name, with the name of Allah, or in the name of God, or, whatever. They normally translate the word ism as name. And let's see if that's the best that we can do in terms of translation. We use our name to sign our signature. So very often you've heard Instructor Bilal say, with the signature of Allah. See, with the signature of Allah. And you know that your signature is that which it gives you permission to do certain things, or that which you allow others permission to do certain things. If your signature is on it and they say, oh, the boss signed off on this, well, let's get this done. So that's why we use our signature. The signature is a sign of authority. I'm authorized to do this or to tell you to do that because of my position. So we use our names, again, to sign our signatures. Handwriting analysis. I don't know if you've ever studied that science, but handwriting analysis, the people who study the loops and the curves and how straight the lines are in the letters that you're writing, on the page or whatever, how small the loops are. They say that's connected to something in the psyche. How wide your loops are, that tells you something about the personality of the person. So handwriting analysis tells us that a person's personality can be seen in their signature. The word signature, as most of you should know by now, is a code word for signs in nature. Look at the word signature. Signs in nature. In the Quran, these signs in nature are called ayat. Ayat, which is translated most of the time as instructions or instructing signs. And these ayat, they provide guidance and guidelines, meaning rules and regulations, to ensure that particular outcomes become realized. Outcomes are designed to produce results. The word outcome, we're talking science now, we're not talking nasty, so just slow down your roll. The word outcome is a code word for outcome, C-U-M. This is the English language. I'm trying to show you some of the tricks of the trade. The word come, C-U-M, in this instance simply means cumulative. See, you got to stop thinking nasty and start thinking scientifically. That word come that they use for the jizz that comes out of a male's penis, oh, that's called come, but that's not what it means scientifically. It means that which has accumulated, accumulated. See, that which is cumulative, meaning that it builds. It's a combination of many things. That's what that means. It's a combination of many things. Once come is released, life can then be generated. And listen, they get this wisdom from studying the pages of the Quran. When Allah wants to create, what does he say? Somebody give me the phrase that Allah uses when he intends to bring something into being.
Kun fayakun.
There you go. Beautiful. Now, what letter does N interchange with again?
M.
All right, M. So kun is also come. It makes sense? Yes, I know it does. All right. Yeah. So that's the universe using its cumulative powers and methodology to bring new things into being, bi'idhnillah, by the permission of Allah. That's how the universe operates. I hope you're following this without problems. So once the come is released, life can then be generated. The chemical and genetic combination of elements in the come, in the sperm, allows for the life principle to express itself in the world of human activity. Whoa, that's nicely said. And ayah includes all things big and small, but mostly small. That's why people miss it. Allah says in the samawat, that we translate as skies, he said they are ayat, instructing signs. And he says in the ard, al-ard, the earth, which it doesn't mean earth as we're thinking about earth most of the time. The Quran uses that word. It's talking about something totally different than this physical thing that provides us with soil and vegetation. And that's not what Allah is talking about. You already know what to do with that. For thousands of years, herdsmen and other people have known what to do with the soil and the earth and the trees and the branches. And that's not what Allah is talking about. Allah said that the Quran came to teach the human being that which he before was not knowing. So even al-ard has a different meaning than what it provides for you in the Arabic lexicon of the average Arabic reader. So an ayah, I repeat, includes all things big and small, but mostly small, which can be perceived with any of the 5 basic senses. The English word iota is related to the word ayat. I know you can see and hear it immediately. When these portions, iota, When these portions of creation are viewed and studied, they provide rational instruction. Remember, instructing signs? They provide rational and even moral instruction to the brains of humans for purposes of doing what? Increasing the conscious awareness in the person. So this is how you grow as a true human being. Not just by being in the world and breathing the air and taking poops and making, farting and peeing. And that's all creatures do that. It's not what makes you uniquely human. What makes you uniquely human is that Allah created a brain in this system that can take in information bits at a time, just like they say about the computer. They call the information in the computer, they call it bytes, B-Y-T-E-S. It's just the word bits, because the brain is designed like that, and the computer is designed after the human brain, the most excellent life form that Allah has created on this earth, as far as we know. So these ayat, they provide rational instruction to the brains of humans for purposes of increasing, that's a key word, increasing conscious awareness in the person. Your consciousness is not supposed to stay stagnated. Do you know what the word for stagnation is in the Quran? You're not going to know this. This is going to be one of those wonderful surprises that will allow you to read the Quran with more fluency and with more understanding. The word stagnation is given to us in the word Jahannam. That's the word that they told you meant hell, hellfire. Jahannam, Jahannam. You're being disobedient to Allah. You're going to Jahannam, Jahannam, right? They say that it means hellfire. It means hellfire, but not on the level that you're thinking about. Your stagnation is your hellfire. As everything around you continues to grow and evolve, you stay baby Huey. That's hellfire. Remember baby Huey? Grown up duck, sitting in the classroom with other little boys that are like 1/3 of his size. And he's just mumbling and fumbling, and he's still wearing his diaper. He's in school, he's still wearing a diaper. That's stagnation. That's hell for a human being. It's happening in the world right now. In the political world and other world, there's still people wearing diapers. See, Allah sends you instructing signs, but Allah said most people don't even think about it. It goes, woof, it doesn't even register. Let's continue. Now, increase. In the movie Star Wars, there's a character called the Yoda, Y-O-D-A, a name which is also related to the words iota, because D and T are interchangeable. Most of you know that by now. And it is also related to the word ayat. Iota, ayat. See, Yoda was a creature who was seen as a great instructor. You see, ayat, instructing signs. See, Yoda was seen as like a guru type, a guru, one who possessed tremendous wisdom, and he was sharing that wisdom as instruction for the people fighting the forces of evil. So the name Yoda, again, is also related to those words iota and ayat. Yoda was a creature who was seen as a great instructor. He was also the smallest character in the film. You get it? Iota. He was the smallest character, but with a tremendous level of power and insight. The name Yoda is related to the Arabic word yed and to the Hebrew word yad. Both words mean hand. This is yed. Both of them, yadain, 2 hands. And the hand's 5 fingers represent the 5 senses, which grasps information, receives information, and releases information in the form of teaching and instruction. Ayat is also related to the word Eid. Oh, how many treasures has our source creator blessed this little man with? This little instructor guy from almost in Harlem, upper Manhattan, 10 blocks up is Harlem. Yeah, this is where I was born. And look at the great gift that Allah has given me, not for me, I could never use all of this in my lifetime. He gave it to me for you, not because I'm a special guy. Allah doesn't do things through people because they are special people necessarily. Allah sends instructions to Adolf Hitler, Menachem Begin, Allah can send an instruction through anything and anybody. Because when Allah sends instructions through creation, through nature, etc., those instructions are amoral instructions. Oh, I'm going a little bit deep now. Not going to go much deeper than that because most of you wouldn't be able to handle it. When Allah sends instructions through creation, through nature, through Mother Nature, through the fitrah, those instructions are not moral instructions. They have nothing to do with whether you're a good, bad, or indifferent person. It is strictly a matter of creation dynamics. That's the yardstick that Allah is pointing to the blackboard called the universe and instructing you by. It has nothing to do with whether you've been a good boy or a good girl. That's a different aspect of the creation. So the dynamic creation that we call the physical universe of fitra-based phenomenon, the instructions coming from that part of the creation, nature, that instruction is amoral. It has nothing to do with your moral position on anything. Morals actually do not exist except in the minds of human beings. Because of the signals that Allah has allowed to tap into your human frequencies, your nervous system, that activates certain thoughts. See? Because of the way Allah designed that system, it's that system that when it becomes activated by the introduction to Allah's natural world of creation called nature, nature then begins to knock on the door of another similar but different reality in you. It's called nurture. I've taught this in different ways on different days in the past. Nature will eventually knock on the door of your nervous system, which knocks on the door of your intellect, trying to open it up and feed it information. And then the intellect begins to make judgments and differentiations and distinctions. And that's happening in the human intellect. And then the intellect says, this is better than that, so I'm going to choose what's better over what's worse. That's when moral decision-making comes in. That's a part of what your neocortex is doing as a top layer of brain material. It's registering things in a way that allows the mind to then begin making cogent decisions about things based on what is better over what is not better, based on what is more excellent over what is less excellent or cheap. That's happening in the human being's brain as a result of the moral aptitude being tapped by thoughts, by inclinations, by instincts that are stirring and emotions that are beginning to whirl and run into brick walls, trying to wonder why I feel this way. Why do I feel this bad? Or what's making me feel this level of pleasure? You start to entertain those things in the intellect, and the intellect says it's because of this that you're doing. See, and then you have to make a decision. Is this thing I'm doing good for me? It might feel good right now, but I see that if I keep doing it, I'm going to be a loser. I'm going to lose the quality of my life if I keep smoking this pleasurable cigarette or drinking this pleasurable wine and whiskey and rum. So morals are an internal property, is my point, and have nothing to do. Nature could care less. I'm going to put it a different way so you really register this. Nature could not give a shit about a man who chooses on his own to jump off a high building out the window. Nature will not say, he's been a nice guy, for at least the last 10 years of his 30-year life. Let's save him. Nature will not jump to your rescue. You're going to crash and burn, you're going to crash and get broken up, all your bones, or you're going to die, you're going to be in a wheelchair, you're going to be in a stretcher for the rest of your life if you leave it just to nature. And it's the people with human hearts around you that if you survive, they begin to nurture you back to health. Two separate, distinct, but related activities taking place in Allah's universe is the point. I hope that was clear. Now, ayat is also related to the word Eid, a word that means recurring happiness. The happiness is as a result of the increased experience that we come into as a result of the abstinence during Ramadan. So when we abstain from what people believe should be food and drink, it means something different though. We won't get into that today. But generally speaking, people see Ramadan and the so-called fasting aspects of Ramadan as abstaining from food, and physical drink, and physical sexual relations. And other physical things like arguing, messing with your nervous system unnecessarily. People forget to include that in the list of abstinence. They think it's just food and drink. Yeah, you're supposed to not get, in fact, fasting in the Quran, it means not even talking to people for a certain length of time. Study the surah called Maryam, Surah 19, when she talked about vowing a fast to Allah that I not speak to any soul, any nafs for 3 days. That's abstinence. Abstaining from anything and anybody that could possibly interrupt the frequency levels and modulation taking place in your nervous system. How about that as a meaning for Sawm? Studying Allah's ayat provides increase to our intellects. That's where the Eid takes place, in the intellect, because Eid related to ayat, instructions, instructing signs. Related to iota, that means to pay attention to every single thing. You know, it's because scientists in history have paid attention to every single thing that came across their 5 senses. That's why you have this increase in science in the world, because they paid attention so much and so often that they were able to whittle all of this big stuff, the rocks and the grass and the human and the flesh and the blood. They were able to whittle all of that down to a cell, and then beyond that to an atom, and then beyond that to a quark, and then beyond that, you know, to a boson, and all of these other things that are much smaller than the physical eye can detect. But they had to keep whittling it down. That's what the brain is designed to do, to look for the iota, look for the instructing sign that's not apparent necessarily. That's not necessarily right in front of your face. And I see what it is. That's what it is. No, Allah says, look deeper. Do they not yatadabbaru al-Qur'an? Do they not deeply ponder al-Qur'an in order to be able to flesh out any discrepancies that might be there? There are none there. They're only in your mind. That's the purpose of studying the Quran deeply, so that you can cancel out all of your doubts about what Allah did, or if Allah did this. No human being could have ever put together a plan like what you're seeing in front of you as creation, like this hand. Forget the rest of the creation. If you just study this hand, science has been studying this hand for decades, and they still don't know how the thumb is able to do that. They say, okay, we know the pointer finger and it's related to a nerve that's related to the heart, and they get all of that. But when it comes to this guy here, the odd man out, they have no idea. Because see, once they find out how the thumb is able to do this, they're going to have a tremendous key into what makes a human being human, because no other creature can utilize this digit the way humans utilize it. Not even monkeys and apes. They can't do this. They can't build constructions by picking up items and articles and objects with the use of this thumb. If you cut this thumb off, you might think, oh, well, I have 4 left. I can still operate. No, it'd be almost impossible for you to pick up your morning cup of tea. Isn't that wonderful? We're going to go just a few minutes over time, just a few minutes, because I need to complete at least this part of what I'm saying. And inshallah, we'll have another class somewhere early in the week, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. So studying Allah's instructing signs provides increase, aid, to our intellects, the aql. Increase is called an addition. You see, add, aid, iota, yed. Don't we use, isn't it the first thing we use to add when we learned how to add? The teacher said, 1 + 1 = 2. She told us to use our fingers to add. And then she'd count our fingers, and then she'd count our toes, and then we learned how to count up to 20 by counting both our hands, fingers on both our hands, toes on both of our feet. That's how we learned how to add, by using the yad and the yod, as they would say in Hebrew. A name introduces a personality which can thereafter be specifically identified. Bismillah may thereafter be rendered into English as with or by, that's the B-I-B, i.e. in association with. That's what we mean when we say with. I'm with him. I'm in association. I'm here for the same purpose that he brought me here. I need to accomplish what he brought me here for. I'm working for the big guy. See, I'm working for him. He gives me my marching orders. You can't come directly to me. You got to go through my boss if you want this, that, and the third done. So that's B. Yeah. So with or by the ism, the identification of Allah. Oh, here's where the rabbit hole begins to go deep. But I'm not going to keep you all afternoon. I promise. In order to connect with the identity of Allah, you see how different that is than what many of the scholars have given you. This, in the name of God, with the name of Allah. I'm not trying to offend any ethnic group, but this is how I've heard it most of my life from the scholars who teach this. May Allah continue to bless them with an increase in understanding. So we're talking about a translation that says with the identification of Allah. I like to say with the signature, because your signature is your identification, isn't it? They say, hey, you want to get into this place here? That's, you have to have special permission to get into. Let's see your ID. And when they look at your ID, they look at your signature. And they match it with a signature that somebody said is your signature. And if he has this signature, you can let him in. You get it now, right? So Bismillah is with the identification or with the identifying signature of Allah. In order to connect with the identity of Allah, we must first become conscious of who Allah is. He's not Allah. He's not the pagan moon god pronunciation. He is Allah. That's it. That's sufficient. Quran tells you that Allah is sufficient. It tells you that in the Quran. Allah is kafar. He's enough. So to connect with that identity of Allah, we can't just do it with lip service. We can't just do it with useless rituals, thinking that as long as we say Bismillah before we walk in the bathroom, or the jinns will scurry, or as long as we say Bismillah when we eat some food, if there's something tainted in the food or poisonous in the food, it won't affect our system because we said the magic words. There's no magic words in the Quran for you to pronounce. None of the Quran is hocus pocus. None of the Quran is Shazam. That's what Muslims need to understand for our day and time. If other people around the world are slow at catching up with what I'm telling you right now, let them be slow. You stay in the line that's moving forward and ahead of the rest. And I'm saying to you that the word Allah in the Quran, Allah, is not a magic spell. It's a frequency. That is enough for you and has many different ways of being expressed. So We must first become conscious of who Allah is and of what Allah approves and disapproves of. That should be the first thing registering on your mind whenever you consciously engage Allah's ayat. Is this permissible? That's what the signature is supposed to allow you. Everything that's permissible, that Allah says is permissible. Is this permissible? Does this contain or utilize Allah's signature? Is Allah's signature on this relationship? The way I treated my wife last night, was Allah, did he sign off on that? What I said to her? Is Allah signing off on how I'm raising my children? The advice I'm giving them or not giving them, watching them go to hell, listening to the kind of music they love and going to the places that, you know it ain't right. And you have said nothing to them about it. Doesn't mean they have to listen to you. Everybody's free to listen to what they want to listen to, but have you spoken on it? Have you said, no, son, the strip club is off limits to Muslims and anybody who's got a brain? How are you going to be satisfied with a good woman when your interest is in the porn star woman, in the lady dancing the pole, doing the pole dance, and half naked and sometimes naked? How are you going to find a real decent woman when that becomes your attraction? What do I say about attraction? What do I say about what you give your attention to? Whatever you give your attention to expands, it explodes. So when you see that nice sister, that nice man come up to you and begin talking intelligently, it's not going to be attractive to you because you got used to the expansion of the porn person, of the Brazilian booty girl. I watched the thing on YouTube the other day about the Brazilian butt, whatever that is, they call it, the Brazilian butt, the BB, whatever they call them, where these women get stuff injected into their rear end to make it more voluptuous. So they think it's really turning them into freaks of nature. You got some top rap women now. I forget the names of these people. I know y'all know who they are, some of you. That's what it's their look. And they don't even think, man, with all of this excess fat, this rubber or whatever it is, plastic that's being shot into my rump, while I'm 18 and 19, maybe 21 years old, what's going to happen if I live to be 50, 60? What's going to happen with this rear end? That's what I'm asking. All this extra junk in my trunk, as Martin used to say. What's going to happen? What am I going to do with all this? When the men are no longer interested, they're not interested in it anymore right now, because so many of y'all have done that to yourselves that you're just average. You're just a circus freak show. That's how they used to use the Hottentots out of Africa. They used to round them up years ago, decades ago, and put them into circuses and zoos behind cages. Here in America, the Hottentots, who had a natural voluptuous rear or bottom, as they called it. And the other folks would come there, Europeans or European Americans, and they would pay money to go in there and see them, maybe touch their rear ends and that kind of thing. That's how you want to be known the rest of your life? Unacceptable. These are the people who are experiencing the great elimination of the human soul, by the way. And now, we have to know who Allah is and what Allah approves and disapproves of. In other words, we have to know what Allah allows. See, the word Allah and allow, they are related words, even though they're in two different languages. Allah and his universe allows you to do anything that your brain can conceive. You can do it. It allows you. Allah allows you. But Allah puts impediments in the way of the allowances that will lead to no good. He'll send you messages. All right, now, you can do that if you want, but be careful, because this is going to be the outcome, and you'll be able to see the outcome by looking at other people. As Allah said, look at what those who came before you, look at how they ended up doing the same thing you're doing, even though you're doing more of it. And you think you're going to be all right, all right, all right. Nah, it ain't going to be cool at the end of this road, man. There's a hill that you're about to fall off of. See, but Allah will allow you to do it because Allah allows. That's what human freedom is all about. But it's supposed to be human freedom, the freedom for the dome to figure it out for itself. and make the right choices. The basmala eliminates the guesswork that's involved in determining exactly who Allah is before you make a move. You have to register it with the allowances that you know Allah approves of. That's why we begin Bismi Allah, with Allah's approval, with Allah's signature, with Allah's identification, moving upon Allah's identity, what He permits. We'll do one more page and we'll be finished. What scholars are not knowing, and share this with your Arabic professors, your Arabic teachers in your schools and colleges. What these scholars are not knowing is that every Arabic word can and should first be researched for its proto-root, meaning the original biconsonantal meaning. We're steered in the direction of the root words. Every Arabic class that you have ever taken and that you ever will take, unless people come in contact with this new way of learning the Arabic language, or any language for that purpose, but we're talking about Arabic right now. There are the root words, which most teachers have been taught to teach us by. Root words, 3-letter root words, and 4-letter root words, so forth and so on. But all of those 3-letter root words and thus began as biconsonantal words, 2 consonants, and then a 3rd consonant that they call a radical for some reason. A 3rd radical is added to the biconsonantal root or proto-root word. So there's the proto-root consisting of 2 consonants, 2 letters, and then there is the actual root that consists of 3 or even maybe 4, 5, or even 6 letters in the Arabic language system. Now you might say, well, why is that important? For the same reason that the fitrah, we're calling Mother Nature, provides for us when we plant a seed. And remember now, Nunetics is dealing with seed letters. When you plant a seed in nature and the seed begins to germinate by first expressing a motion or an action that opens up the seed. And what comes out of the seed does not immediately go upwards as a root. What comes out of the seed initially goes down further into the soil as what they call a tap root. And it's the tap root that I'm equating with the proto root, the root before the root. That's what proto means. Proto-Indo-European language. That means before Indo-European language was established. There's a proto root that produced the root. There's a tap root in the earth that produces the root for the plant to begin its ascension upwards. And then when it busts through the clogs of soil and presents itself to the world as a new creation, it then takes on branches. A wonderful way that Allah has of teaching the human being. And this is not Muslim knowledge. This is human knowledge that any human being can benefit from. Dear Muslims, stop hogging up the Quran for yourself, not wanting to share it with other human beings. My goodness. Now, these scholars are not knowing that all of the Arabic words begin with proto-root letters, 2 roots at a time, or 2 letters, I should say, at a time. Now, therefore, instead of the triconsonantal, the 3-consonantal root word that they give you in the dictionary for the word for sky or name, actually, is what we're discussing, the word for name. The ismi, they say that the triconsonantal root word is sin, mim, wow, or SMW. Hmm? That's what they tell you are the root letters for the word name, ismi, ism. However, the proto-root letters are sin, meme. See, you got to know how to look at those proto-root letters, the three of them, and you have to know the science for deducing which one of these was the last one added. Once you can determine what the last one added is, and I'll teach you that in the very near future, it's an easy way to determine it, then you dismiss the last one. And that's how you'll come upon the proto-root biconsonantal letter combination. So it's going to be seen, meme. And I'll tell you the easy way right now. So in case you want to study this right away, what we had as a triconsonantal root is seen, meme, wow. But wow is also used as a vowel. Just like aleph is also used as a vowel. You get it? So any letter that is used as a vowel that's found at the beginning or the end of a word, such as this, seem, meme, wow, that vowel cannot be a part of the proto-root combination of letters. So dismiss it. That's how you come up with your proto-root. These are not vowels. You can't use seen and meme as a vowel, but you can use wow. You can use aleph as a vowel. Ikra, they tell you qaf, ra, aleph. The aleph came last. So the real root letters for the word ikra are in the qaf and the ra. The aleph in the beginning of the word ikra, it's a vowel. It's not original. It's not a part of the proto-root. You have to dismiss it. When you begin to learn these things, if you're truly interested in the Arabiya of the Quran, the Fitra-based Arabiya of the Quran, you're going to grow in leaps and bounds. Let's continue. So these are the letters which lead us back to the Fitra object known as the sky. In the case of the word as-sama, they say that means the sky. As-sama. That's the singular form for as-samawat that we were discussing earlier as the so-called skies, the plural skies, but it means the graduations of knowledge that give you multiple levels of understanding. That's what Allah means by as-samawat. And it's not understanding in just anything. It's understanding in the Quran, not just in any knowledge, in the Quran. Now, Numetics is one of those graduations. It's one of those levels. Now, in our human paradigm, as-sama speaks to the authority of the intellect as it rules and regulates over the emotions. Let me repeat this. The word we're talking about now that's also found in the Quran as as-sama, that they just simply translate as the sky. It doesn't mean just the sky. Allah is not just telling you about the sky. Allah is telling you about something operating abstractly in your human makeup. You can't put your finger on it. You got to put your intellect on it. You got to connect it to your emotionality and see how it registers there in the spinal cord of your existence. So this word as-sama speaks to the authority. See, the sky is over your head. That makes it an authority. There's nothing you can do about anything that the sky wants to do to you. Stuff, boulders could fall out of the sky. There's nothing you go put your umbrella up. What you gonna do? Rain, snow, hail, windstorm, all of that stuff can come out of the sky. And there's nothing you can do because the sky holds the ultimate authority over the environment. That's what Allah is speaking to. And the thing that does that in your human life is the human intellect. And Allah designed the human intellect as the authority figure in your human life. It's not your emotions. Your emotions can have a severe impact upon your life, but it's only because you're not using your intellect to regulate your life. So you have to use your decision-making capabilities created by Allah and given to you as a free gift in order to properly regulate your life. Regulate. The word regulate comes from regular. The word regular comes from the Quranic Arabic word rijal. Rijal, they say, means the male, M-A-L-E. But that's another misnomer in the Quran. Allah's not talking about the physical male biology. When he uses the term rijal, I can show you in different parts of the Quran where it's not used to mean male at all. Rijal means the de facto leader in you, called your human intellect. Rijal has to do with the movement of your feet. Rijlun, that's a foot soldier. The movement of your feet. See, you got to start thinking about these concepts. What do your feet do? See, that's the first question you got to ask yourself. What is the action of this thing Allah is talking about? Why is this word for male connected to the feet? And how many feet do you have? Okay, you have 2 feet connected to 2 legs. Okay, leg. Now start looking for consonantal connections. Leg, legion, logic, lecture. Look for all of the words that have consonantal connections. That's what numetics and consonantal connections is here to teach you, to give you the jump on the rest of the world's scholarship. Leg, logic. That's how Imam Muhammad came upon those connections, just by using his aql. If there are 2 legs, and the word leg is going to be connected to the word logic, then there must be 2 forms of logic operating in the human psyche. What are those 2 forms of logic? Moral logic, rational application of the logic. Just like your feet go left foot, moral advancement, followed by rational application of the moral logic. That's what keeps the human being on the trail of evolution and forward movement, one after the other. You don't hop like you're only on one leg. Allah tells you about that in the Quran. Are they equal? The one walking on 2 legs and the one hopping along on one? Allah says, are they equal? No, you got a lot of moral do-gooders in the world, but if you don't use your intellect to advance your moral cause, oh man, and your moral cause can be as wrong as 2 left feet, as they say. The moral majority, the Ku Klux Klan, they thought they were moral. These groups of Chinese businessmen in Africa who were treating the Africans as their slaves and sex toys, and just using them and making mockery of them, having them repeat words in Chinese in front of these cameras that are rolling. And the Chinese person is giving them the lines to say in Chinese. These young, innocent Africans, 5 years old, 7 years old, 12 years old, they think they're learning Chinese, but the words that they are reciting are words that are calling themselves jungle bunnies and niggas and inferior humans. Literally, they're calling themselves inferior. We are inferior humans. And they don't know what they're saying. They're just being taught this by the Chinese cameraman, director of the film. And these films are prospering all over parts of Africa, making millions of dollars for these Chinese. Not all Chinese. I have to continue to say that. You should know that by now. But these nefarious ones, but they need to have their asses kicked off the continent by any means necessary. And I mean that. More than exploitation that these people are having to suffer through. And they have a movement building now amongst the native Africans there that are doing whatever they feel they can do and should do about that situation. And the so-called African American, we have our own challenges here where we are, but that's a story for another night. So let's just look at the 2 letters that comprise as-sama, the 2 consonants that comprise sama, and then we'll be done. Remember now, in our human paradigm, as-sama speaks to the authority of the intellect. That's your sky that Allah is addressing in the Quran when he uses the word as-sama. As that intellect rules and regulates over the emotions, that's the water content, emotions. Moral content, emotional content. There has to be a regulator in your human life that is giving guidance and decision-making ability to what's going on in the intellect. You can't just leave the intellect as a free-floating cloud in your sky. You have to be able to do what Allah says about the clouds in the Quran, that he directs them to a land that is parched, that is dry, bone dry. Then he releases the water from those clouds and they fall on land and begin to stir life in the soil so that human beings can once again have what it is they need for the further operation and growth, development, and evolution of their human lives. It's not talking about the physical. We know what the physical rain does. We know what the physical soil does. We know, you see, we know those things on the physical level. We don't have to be taught those things by the source creator of all universes. But what we do have to be taught are many of the abstract connections and the logic of those physical phenomena that Allah designed to regulate the physical creation. So the letter Sin has to do with the chewing intellect, the intellect as it chews on ideas and concepts so that the intellect can begin to shine like the sun. The word sun is actually related to the Arabic word Sin. You can see it in that S and N combination, but it's talking about the intellect. This is also where the Quranic word sunnah that they like to throw in front of our faces as though it means something that's connected to Muhammad the Prophet. The word sunnah is nowhere in the Quran connected to Muhammad the Prophet. The word sunnah is most of the time in the Quran connected to what Allah does as a rule, as a constant rule in nature. And that his sunnah, his way, his tradition, it never changes. It's steady. So that's the letter Sin, intellect. And then the second consonant, Meme. We're still talking proto-root. Meme represents water, and water is symbolic of emotions. Water is symbolic of memory, because memory is in us so that we might be able to reflect things that we've learned in the intellect. You know, when you look at a bowl of water, you put your head over it, you see you. You go to the front of the lake and you look over, you see you. Might not be perfectly still. Now, if you go to a still bowl of water and look into it, that's my face right there. It reflects. People go by a lake or something, and sometimes they sit there because they can just concentrate and reflect on life, reflect on their problems and their concerns, and just sit by the water and just meditate. How wonderful is that? So that's the water content. The Sin is the intellect concept, and the intellect is supposed to rule over the emotions in the same way that the physical sun is ruling over the physical waters on earth. It's the sun that is using its heat to push the water into different directions. It's the sun that's creating the temperature. It's the sun that's creating the winds even, that swoop down and push the water into certain directions, creating waves. See, that's your emotionality, creating waves in the water until that water can find its balance and be still. So we're going to end on that point. There will be a part 3, inshallah, during the week. You'll know it through an email. If you don't presently if you're not presently registered for the University Online Learning course, there are going to be certain classes that only the registered people are a part of and can benefit from. I'm with this new cycle this new semester coming in as of July 1st, I'm going to be sending a lot more in my goodie package to those who have physically registered for the class by sending in your payment. And I'll put in the drop-down box. And at the end of the video, if you don't know already, I'm talking to YouTube land now. If you don't already know how to register, you should know by now. But if you don't, I'll put down all of the steps that you need to take in order to become physically registered, because the people who are actually factually registered, they're going to be receiving goodie bags full of information that's not going to be shared with YouTube or any other tube, because you haven't done anything in YouTube land really to prove that you're actually truly interested in going deep into this language. These other people, they put their money where their mouths are. They are committed. So I'm going to be dealing specifically with the people who have actually committed to learning this system called the Nunetics method. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Peggy Muhammad. Long time no see. I think I saw you here last week also. It's good to, always good to see you. We need to talk soon. All right. So this is what we're talking about. Being committed to learning. When people go to college, they pay tuition. When people go to a private instructor, you know, as a child, their parents pay, you know, some fee that the, you know, so because the instructor, they're taking his time. He's studying and pulling out his hair about concepts so he can present it to you more accurately and easily for you to grasp. That's no small task. I don't know if y'all understand what I'm talking about. Instructor Bilal, for all of these years, has been involved in a monumental task of taking heavy concepts and being able to break them down so the average one of you who might not have even gone to school at all can still understand. So I'm just saying, appreciate that and act accordingly, because you will be the ones receiving the bigger prize. So it'll still be on YouTube, but just in these small 1 hour spurts. And what the rest of the people are going to be getting is going to be monumental. You're going to need some disk drives, some 2 megahertz or whatever. I don't know what they call those things, those disk drives, you know, but you're going to need several of those to carry the information that I'm going to start sending you. And you need to put it on those external drives and save it. Don't save it to your computer alone. It's going to choke up your computer. It's going to be too much for your computer. Video, audio, writings, things that I've collected that I refuse to go to my grave with, because who is going to benefit if I die and leave all of these treasure troves of information? For who? This is your inheritance. And inshallah, if Allah preserves me, I'm going to make sure that you get the bulk of what it is you need to continue and pass down to your future generations also, especially if you're teachers in the school, parents over children, over households, or if you just want to involve yourself in a deep dive self-study session that's going to turn you from pessimism into the most optimistic human thinker that you never thought you would turn into. But the concepts that I'm going to be laying before you and have already been laying before you are going to be so outstanding that you, oh man, it's like James Brown said in one of his songs, you're going to want to turn around and kiss yourself for taking advantage of this knowledge. All right. Alhamdulillah. So I'm going to turn the microphone back over to William Safir, and I will have all of the necessary information at the end of this video for you to share with yourself, your loved ones, your neighbors, your fellow masjid, church, synagogue, or basketball court company. But share the information. That's how you're going to get more. That's how you're going to grow. And if you're having any issues about payments or anything like that, or you want to know some shortcuts or some partial payment types, just reach out to me. I'm approachable. I don't know if you've noticed that over the last few years. I am absolutely approachable. All right. So take advantage of it while it's here, because the things you don't take advantage of, they're going to soon disappear, and it might be another lifetime before it comes back your way, which means you won't get it if you don't take advantage of it now. All right. So with that said, thank you for listening. Thank you for the opportunity to address you as we close out with the dua. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. And that is our guardian evolver. Grant us the good in this life of the dunya, this material world, and grant us the good of the akhirah, that which follows this dunya existence, and save us from the harm, save us from the negative aspects of what is called the nar, or the fire. And this fire that it's talking about is not talking about something that Smokey the Bear would run and try and put out. The fire this is talking about is the fire of mismanaged and unruly passions in us. Save us from that fire. That's what we're asking Allah for. Don't become overly excited about anything that you're seeing or hearing in the news, or that becomes what you might call bad news, and you're, oh my goodness, the world is going to smash. Yeah, I'm going to end it all. I can't take it anymore. Yeah, it don't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter whose office you're in. It doesn't matter with Allah. Allah is Rabbul Alameen. He is the guardian evolver, the sustainer of all systems of knowledge, and he's able to make corrections on knowledge as we go along. If you're in the system that identifies Allah as your Rabb, you have nothing to worry about except what you mistakenly overlook and don't pay attention to, and it's knocking on your door. Hey, you better listen to this. You better start doing this. You better hanker down. You better start working on that community life objective that you keep talking about, because it's going to get crazy here in a minute. Are you going to have some refuge somewhere with some people who you know? Are you making plans to live in proximity to each other like the Amish do, and like the Mormons do, and like all of these other people do who have sense? They live in communities where if they needed some food or they needed some shelter, their folks are right there to assist them, or they're a couple of stops away on the train, you know, on the Amtrak. So, hey, man, I'm coming to your rescue. Don't worry about that. We share the same life and lifestyle. I don't have to worry about the LGBT XYZ community infringing on my rights, or the rights that I have to educate my children properly. We better begin working on that community life project right now. And in order to do that, you're going to need some wealth. The first wealth that you need, however, is the wealth of information that we're providing for you through this class. But very soon, you're going to need that material dunya that I just got finished making the dua over, for Allah to provide for us. Rabbana atina fid dunya. Give us the good of the dunya. That's excellent. Hasana. It's hasana. It's not evil. No evil in the dunya. Right. There's evil in hayatul dunya. When you invest yourself in the life, the hayya of the dunya, and the dunya begins to regulate your living situation. How you perceive through these five senses is all centered around getting more dunya, getting more dunya. No. The superior attention should be given to the akhirah, the things that are supposed to come after you've established a foundation for life. So hopefully that's understood as I turn the microphone back over to William Safir. Thank you all for allowing me this time. Okay.
Well, an international instructor, he's actually said it all. I don't have anything to add. I mean, you know, we've been served a very delicious and scrumptious meal today. And please, you want to digest the information, which means, you know, he's given this to us in an hour, a little better. But don't think that's it. What you need to do is take this and listen to it over and over again, and not just listen, but to take the time to look at your notes, take the words and concepts, and look deeper into it so that you can own the information. It's time for us to establish this community life, to be able to apply the information, you know, in our lives. So that's what time we're in right now. The way we are able to come together, take advantage of the dunya, and to be able to produce some material wealth so that we can live in close proximity and protect the life that we want for ourselves and we want for the rest of the world. It's time for us to do that, and the time is now.
Right.
So, well, we thank you for your participation, for your continued support, and inshallah, we're looking forward, if not till Tuesday or Wednesday for part 3. Whenever Allah wills, we'll go ahead and finish this particular subject. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Just as a quick reminder, because I'm looking at the calendar dates, and I'm seeing that we're fast approaching July 1. And as all
Yes,
of
sir.
you should know by now, July 1 is the time for you to re-up on your semester payments. So be diligent about that. All right. If you have an issue with that or problem with that, you reach out to me, you let me know. But a couple of people already, as we've been sitting here, have already fulfilled their obligation to make sure they stay connected to this class. So all of the information, again, will be after we sign out here. Thank you all for participating and do what it is you know you should do.
Yes, that's extremely important. And just know that the times are very, very serious. And this, I'm telling you, this knowledge is life saving, life preserving, and it's our time to be able to use this information, use this knowledge to bring in the creation that Allah wants for our lives, for our families, and for the community life. That's what time it is. And as you own the information, it's time for us to use it to establish the kind of life that we all desire as we progress the human life on this planet. So it's extremely important. Don't take this lightly. So if you haven't paid your tuition, get it done. Again, if you need support, as instructor just mentioned, then please let us know so accommodations could be made for you. But you don't want to take this opportunity for granted. You just don't. So with that, again, we were looking forward to our next opportunity to share with you in the very near future with Allah's permission. And again, if you need some more information in terms of just how it's all done, please don't let time get away from you. Go ahead and follow up today or tomorrow so that we can continue in this process. With that, salamu alaikum, and peace be upon you, your families, and your loved ones.
Alaikum salam. Thank you to every single one of you who joined us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your participation. I see about 3 or 4 names that I haven't seen in quite a while. I'm glad to see that you're still with us. You're still in it to win it. Don't worry about what else is going on in your life. Stay connected to this cord right here. Stay connected.
Right.
All right.
Alaikum
salam.
Be in touch in a day or so.
Yes, sir. I'll be looking for you, listening for you. All right.
Okay.
I hear you doing some great work where you are, though. Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm loving what I'm hearing. All right.
Okay.
All right. Peace.